876 stream.
Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Lines. I'm your host, Brian Pitto, and my co-host, Jevon Gapour. Now, today's guest is someone who's very knowledgeable in sports, very famous not just in Jamaica, but throughout the Caribbean. She has a whole catalog of accomplishments, and today we're going to talk to her about all things sports. Thank you so much, Tanya Lee.
Thanks for having me. What do they call it? The ESPN or the...
ESPN of the Caribbean.
There we go.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah. So you have, as I said, you have a lot of accomplishments, a lot of job titles, but what is it that you're working on like right now?
Right now, I kind of consider myself to be in a transition year, and now I'm veering off into athlete brand management full time. And also, I run a marketing agency, LEEP Marketing. Follow me online at LEEP Marketing, and also a sponsorship manager.
Okay.
So I guess that really encompasses what I do now.
And yeah.
You say you're only managing athletes now, or are you planning to go into the football realm?
Well, it's something that I've started doing. I was thinking about going into, I was looking for a good football brand. And I know it sounds terrible to talk about them as brands, but I feel like once you're an athlete, once you're a footballer, you become a brand. Yeah, and I've recently started working with one footballer in particular, Damian Lowe. And I'm pretty excited about what we'll be able to do in the future.
Lowe is a great person to start with.
I think so. He has the maturity, he has a good brand, he has done very well for himself so far with Jamaica. And, you know, looking to the great things with Lowe going forward.
But like, all right, so you're known to manage track athletes though, and you say you're venturing into the realm of managing football players, but like what's the difference? Is there a major difference between managing track and field athletes?
And specifically when we talk about management, we're talking about the brands, right? Because I'm on the brand management side of things. And I think there are some key differences. It's a little harder with footballers in Jamaica, because one of the things is in managing athletes, when you manage an athlete brand, the success of that brand is usually based on the success of that athlete. So pretty much if they're doing well, half your work is really cut out for you already. And it's an individual sport for the most part, outside of a relay and a team setting. With footballers, it's a little more difficult because it's not an individual sport, and your successes are a lot of time based on the successes of your team that you're playing with professionally, as well as when you come into the national setup. So that's more tricky, and it's going to be based on the successes of the national team, for example. So the better the Reggae Boys do, the better for everybody that's within that squad.
How important do you think it is for a player to have a manager? And also, what does a manager do exactly? What exactly it is?
In my opinion, it's critical. And one of the things I think I see a lot of is that people are doing it on the back end of their career. I pay attention to a lot of people, and I realize that there are times when, and that's personality based, maybe they're introverts, they probably shy away from the spotlight, they'd rather not do the interviews, etc. And to me, that hurts you because you're not able to capitalize on your brand when you're done, or even during the biggest days of when you're playing sports. And so I think it is critical from the juncture to start with a plan of where do I want to go in my career? How far do I want to take this? How much money do I want to make? And who do I want to sit at the table with to ensure that I'm capitalizing and I'm making that money? And I think that's critical.
But doesn't that it depends on the society that we live in. Like Jamaica isn't necessarily like a media-oriented society. We don't really fantasize about.
Okay, well let them wait. Yeah. You know, I'm now managing Brianna's brand. And I've been there since she was now she's a senior athlete and professional. And, you know, a lot of people would probably look at a brand like Brianna's and say, well, there's time, give it time. I'm like, why not right now? Exactly, yeah. Brianna was able, this year alone, I was able to get her contracts with both Digicel and Grace Kennedy, two of the biggest brands in Jamaica. You're talking about a year when track and field is not even being run. You're talking about in the middle of a pandemic.
And she also signed with Nike when she was
And she signed with Nike through HSI Sports, her agents in California. And the beauty of that is that there was always a plan in place for what we're going to do with Brianna's brand, even though it's a young brand and she's just 18. But this was something that we had a plan for from the get-go. So what's happening today was planned from yesterday. So you don't wait. Because what eventually happens is that I consider the world of sports to be a crowded space, especially in Jamaica where there are a lot of track athletes. So Get in front of your audience.
Yeah.
You know, that would be my suggestion.
So why do you think though that athletes in Jamaica don't necessarily focus primarily on brand, like building their brand? Like local athletes.
For a number of reasons. I think that this is something that is beginning to actually emerge globally. If you look over the past 10 or so years, everything has really changed in the sporting landscape. There was a time at which, you know, an athlete would primarily make their money through salaries from playing sports. Mm-hmm. So you're a footballer, you collect the salary from the club, you go home, lots of money, you retire, they wonder what you're going to do with yourself and what you're going to do with it. I don't know necessarily that everybody had a plan. Now when if you look at maybe the past 10 or so years, things have changed significantly. People are making much more money now off their brand than off the sports that they actually play. Look at Usain Bolt right now is retired. I feel like every week or so I see Usain and NJ launching a new product and there's a new commercial and he's involved in another endeavor. That's because Usain's brand was properly and carefully developed to take him much further once he retired. So he's still banking off that brand, which is what I think needs to happen, that they need to pay more attention to that. But we're not there yet because that's still relatively new. And it probably started with like a Tiger Woods, you know, somebody who made much more money off the golf course than he did on it, with a lot of endorsement deals. LeBron James makes much more from endorsements than he does playing basketball. Naomi Osaka, 23, richest female athlete in history. That girl is banking off about 14 brands between the US and Japan and the tennis world. Much more than she makes just winning like 1 or 2 tournaments every year for the past 3 years.
All right, so my thing is this. We spoke about the local athletes. We're talking specifically about local athletes.
Right.
You made mention, when I asked you about the football, managing side of football, you made mention to team success being a major influence in the personal brand.
Yes.
Locally, I think it's safe to say, even if there's success, local success, it's not really, it doesn't have the same attraction as if it was, you know, like a Leon Bailey or who you're doing now, Damian Lowe, who is abroad playing and stuff. Like, speak to me about how do they go about marketing themselves or get themselves paid outside of football?
All right, so you talk about Leon Bailey first of all. Leon has had major visibility for a number of reasons. Craig is in the news a lot. Leon is in the news a lot, but Leon also plays for a very popular club globally. Yeah. So that in itself puts him in front of a bigger audience than what you'd get, say, playing at Harborview or everywhere else. It's a given, right? So that's why I said it's often tied to the successes of the team you're with. So you look at Raheem Sterling. I know he's not really Jamaican, but I feel like Raheem is Jamaican.
Yeah, he's always here. So
Manchester City is doing very well.
Yeah.
So, of course, Raheem's brand locally is through the roof, right?
I had an interview with him the other day, and that was pretty successful for them.
Correct. Now, so that's what I mean when I said it's tied to it. Now, if you are looking to do well in terms of building your brand and increasing your visibility here, I think it would be important to get somebody who manages that brand, who can do the publicity work for you, ensure that you're visible in spaces. So, for example, one of the things I think is missing in some sports, and I'm going to look now at women because I feel so passionate about female sports and women's sports. And even like cricket, I look at somebody like a Stephanie Taylor. And Stephanie is doing so well for herself on the cricket pitch and has the biggest female cricket brand in Jamaica, and she's hardly visible online. I barely see her in interviews. And to me, that's what's missing because I don't get the impression that there's anybody professionally working on that brand. Khadijah Shaw, I'd love to see more of her. I feel like Khadijah was a breakout star of last year. Was it last year?
Yeah, in the World Cup.
The World Cup, yeah. And that was huge. I mean, I think we all really want to know what she's up to. We see what she's doing in France, but if there's a team in place and there's more of her doing the local interviews, pushing out more information, I feel like that will help her to be able to do much more with her brand.
But doesn't that go, so you mentioned that perhaps some athletes might be introverts. So what if Khadija is probably, she doesn't want to be in the limelight?
Well, it's really up to her. You have all different types, eh? In any field of endeavor, there are different personality types, and some persons may decide that that's not something that they want to do, and that's fine. It's perfectly fine. But my suggestion, if you really want to bank more from your brand, and if you want to get to the heights of being able to utilize that brand even after you're done playing your sport, I think then you should pay more attention to your visibility.
Yes, that's true.
Sticking with football players, local football players, because I'm really concerned about the local players. Because
why?
Because the other day I read something online about the kind of salary they bring in, and it's like a 2 week.
$30,000.
Yeah.
Something.
It's like
you
after
mean
2 weeks,
local
it's
Premier League?
right. Local players,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So I'm concerned about them, and so what I want to know, in order, as I said a while ago, say even when you win here in Jamaica, it's not really success.
The thing with the local Premier League to me, and I think this is a stepping stone, which is partly why our league suffers as well, because we export a lot of our good talents in Jamaica. So even at one point, in the US MLS, you find that there were more Jamaicans per capita in the MLS than any other country in the world. Because once they're doing fairly well here, you'll find that they are off to another country. You look at somebody like even a Norman Campbell recently, who is now playing in Serbia, who got a professional contract overseas before he even played for the national team. He literally just touched a pitch in Saudi Arabia for the first time. Didn't play even under 23, under 20. So when you really pay attention to that, you realize that it is kind of like a feeder to what they're going to do next. And I think that's what really hurts the local product. Because then the talent pool is not necessarily as great as you would have it if we were importing players and if it was the other way around.
And Europe, all right, so what do you think the local Premier League can do? You are in marketing. How can they market themselves?
I'm not giving that away for free. I noticed that there's a new committee. Give me a call. Yeah, okay. I'll push it for you.
But is there any, all right, so there's nothing at all like, all right, but, we look at the local Premier League and we see that, they struggle to attract the fans and the hype and,
In parts. In some parts they struggle, in some parts they don't. Because I think that where the strength... All right, I like to look at like consumer habits, right? And when it comes to football, I look at the spectator habits. Here in Jamaica, I think the culture is around community football. That's where it's strongest. Like if right now you were to say randomly go to Draxall on a Saturday afternoon, you're gonna see droves of people. By the way, I'm in a football group in Porus, and these guys, there's a bar in Porus called Old Trafford, where they always have the Man U flags outside on game day, and I always pass and I stopped one day, and I'm a part of their football group now. Great group of guys. And they invited me out last year to go to their annual football tournament. And when I got there, it was literally the biggest football event I've ever seen in Jamaica. Really? I was shocked at the numbers. And this is relatively unknown to the rest of Jamaica. Football is still, to a great extent, a community endeavor. Yeah. At Tivoli Gardens is coming out every Sunday to watch their team. And Arnett, I'm an Arnett supporter in RSPL. I go there because it's colorful, it's fun. You sit there and it's just non-stop excitement. You know what Waterhouse is like on game day. You can't, that kind of magic. Yeah. But it's not everywhere. Portmore United doesn't really have that. I don't know if it's because they were Hazard originally. Maybe Portmore is too big and people don't have that kind of affinity to the community. But I think it is a community-based endeavor in Jamaica, and our push should be around how much you represent for your community.
Do you think we're passionate about football though? Because
are you?
Of course.
Yeah. Are you?
Yeah, but it's not
Me too.
It's not akin to the passion that we see, for example, in England. Those people live, breathe, sleep football, and they're very extremely passionate about it. I feel like if we were more passionate about football, there would be more structure, there would be more...
One of the things that I look at with Jamaica that I like, and that I also don't like, is I like when we make comparisons because we're an ambitious people, right? I want to go to lofty heights. But I also don't like it because it's not fair. We don't have the same economic means. We don't have the same history as a country and as a people. And there are so many things that make it a different product from England. I think there are many people who would like to have what they have in England. I worked for many years with La Liga, And La Liga is trying to get what they have in England.
Okay.
You know, and what is La Liga? A league that was loaded with the top players in the world. So is Jamaica realistically going to be anywhere near that? No. Do we have the numbers to support that? So maybe at Tivoli Gardens, a full Tivoli Gardens is what, 2,000, 2,500 people? I don't think that's bad. So I think we can, I would never say to limit expectations, but to be a little more realistic in what we're looking at. And that would be my take on the local product. However, with all of that said, I still think that we need to professionalize what we're doing. Because I still think that actually we are passionate about sports, we are passionate about football, but a lot of it is being run on passion, and not enough of it is being run on professionalism. And I think that's where we need to bridge that gap.
Yeah, okay. And I want to take you to the other aspect of it. You know, you say you're very passionate about women in sports. Now, the reggae girls, there's some neglect, obviously, from the federation as it relates to the reggae girls. They haven't played a match since the World Cup. What do you think about the situation surrounding female football in Jamaica?
There's much more that needs to be done there. But I think there's much more that needs to be done across football in Jamaica generally. With women's football, with youth football, what is the plan? I was listening to Craig's interview and I agreed with much of what he said regarding us not having a philosophy. And I think that's important. And we've been talking about this forever. I've certainly worked for many years with like the JFF. And there are some things that are lacking. Some of the issues that I saw recently that was in the press related to things that happened in Saudi Arabia and, you know, negotiations with the team, it felt like deja vu to me. Because I remember the days of a Marlon King having issues. I remember the days of issues when there was a Luton Shelton and a Lovell Palmer in the team and they went to the Bahamas. I think there was a strike there if I remember well. But it feels a lot like deja vu, and I would say that we really have to work on fixing the professional side of how we do football here.
Okay.
So to summarize, it's really all our football that needs to be looked at, not just the women's game, but certainly there is neglect in all parts of it.
Understood.
Going back to the Jamaican girls, the female, we see how well they did in the World Cup just last year. And as he pointed to, not even a match hasn't been played. You, as somebody who know, come know you know the sport. People should know the sport. As someone who knows the sport and also know about the marketing and the financial side of it, what does it take for JFF to put a match together for these girls?
I actually don't know exactly what that would require, especially because 2020 is such an interesting year. It's a unique year because we're in the middle of a pandemic, so I really don't know what kind of opportunities exist for doing that right now and what kind of returns would be possible for doing that right now. It would be unfair of me to randomly assess that without knowing the full picture.
Yep. All right, so in terms of the whole image of the JFF right now, sorry to be talking about the JFF so much, but I think if you're passionate about football in Jamaica, this is something that's very important because they are the ones who govern our football. Is there a way in which they can rebrand themselves, or what is it that they're doing wrong right now? Because a lot of persons
Rebranding the JFF.
Yeah, because they don't really have a good image. You know, a lot of people said they need a publicist maybe to communicate properly with the press. Because they've been
See, this is what I do for a living, right?
Yeah.
Publicity, brand development, etc. But at the same time, I also do believe that it's more important for you to just ensure that what it is that you do is actually done professionally. That you're going in the direction of making changes to your program that is beneficial to the team, beneficial to Jamaica, etc. I would be more interested in seeing that from any association and federations dealing with sports in the region, because I find that it's across the board, right? TTFA has their issues in Trinidad as well. Lots of issues. Yeah. I mean, FIFA was stepping in recently whether fair or unfair. May have been a little unfair. But what I find is that I'd be more interested in them operating from a more professional basis rather than putting a publicity band-aid over things or being able to court the media. It's much more important to deal with whatever the issues are first,
Okay.
rather than trying to fix the brand image publicly. I think one will follow the other.
All right. Let's step away from football for a sec. Track and field. You manage Brianna Williams. Upcoming
brand.
Star, her brand. Upcoming star. What is your opinion of track and field now? Ever since Usain Bolt retired and Shelley she said what next event is her last event. So we're losing our stars.
No, we're not.
Well,
That's absolutely crazy, and I don't understand it. First of all, the idea that we're looking for a next Usain Bolt is not going to happen,
Oh, no,
people. He's a
not
freak of nature. He was superhuman, and what he did for the sport was special. You don't often see that. I don't know that tomorrow you're going to get up and find another Bolt, Muhammad Ali, LeBron James, Michael Jordan.
There can never be another Usain Bolt.
You may never find that. But Jamaica's track and field is in very good hands. Right now you have the double Olympic champion, Elaine Thompson. Hello. You have the world under 20 champion in 100 and 200 meter in Brianna Williams. The last world championships that was held last year, Jamaica came back with 12 medals, I believe it was. Our biggest medal haul before that was like 2015, and we had like 13, I believe. I think we're fine. I don't think we have anything to worry about. And what happened at the last World Champs? Anybody remember what happened on day 2? Y'all football people, right? Tajay Gale won gold in the long jump. That's the first long jump goal we've seen. That's a national record, like 20 odd years that the record stood with James Beckford. We have people, you have Daniel Thomas Dodd that's doing well now. You had Shanika Ricketts that also picked up a medal. You had silver for Frederick Dakers in the discus event. We don't normally do that well in the field events. Jamaica is like a sprint factory to the world. So we're actually making strides in other areas. I think Jamaica's track and field is in good hands, and we should just be patient. It's gonna all come together very nicely. But we're also doing well now.
And that's fair. I feel like, as you say, we should start looking in a different direction because, as you mentioned, LeBron James.
But why do you say look in a different direction? What's
terms
wrong
of-
with the sprints?
No.
Shelley and Fraser Price was 30 odd years old and was world champion.
No, man, in turn.
Well,
Elaine Thompson, Elaine is in her 20s and
Well,
is the
yes.
defending champion.
Yeah, but I'm thinking.
But
like
you know
5 to
that
10
track and
years
field
from now.
athletes, normally they peak anywhere around, well, recently these guys have been doing so well, but they tell you 29, 30. She has, yeah. I don't think we have anything to be concerned about.
But no, my point was we focus a lot more on the track than we do in the field. Because as you mentioned the jump, and the other day I see Clive Pullen posted something about, I don't even fact check me producer and put it up right there so. Put it right there so. He put up something say, he made a jump the other day. It was a record jump. It's like his personal best and it was very good. I think it was 15 something or 16 something. I don't remember what it was. But the point I'm making is we don't necessarily have to stress the track as we do. It's the same like NBA. They've been trying to find the next LeBron James, but they see now that them light-skinned brothers are coming up. Them can't take it over.
No, you know what it is? You know what it is? I must tell you that Jamaicans annoy me when it comes to track season. And I kind of get offline at that time because they don't pay attention enough to the sport and what's happening. We're making some great strides, people. Like I said, 12. The only one that was above that was like 13. But it's not the events that they're looking at. So is it the male 100-meter final? No. Is it the female 100-meter finals? Yes. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I believe that one of the issues is that they just don't know enough about the sport. You'll have an athlete who was injured, he was out for a couple of weeks, there was something wrong, and they'll look at a final at a global event and say, is what happened to so-and-so? Yeah. Oh, them man, they're no good. Yeah, them not have no heart. And it's like, were you not paying attention throughout the season? Like, they just don't follow the sport enough, and it really irks me. I'm not the only track person who gets irked, like, wow. They're commenting online in droves without knowing all the facts.
What do you think? All right, so you said we're in good hands for the next couple of years, but what I've noticed recently is that a lot of our young athletes have been getting injured a lot. Do you think we're taking care of our young athletes? So, Christopher Taylor had some serious injuries. Jevon Matheson is a very famous case. Kevon Davis had some issues as well. What do you think about our treatment of our younger athletes? Prior to this year, of course, because we never had champs.
I don't really like to comment on athletes that I don't know what their individual situations are, or what their background is, or what they're susceptible to, or what's going on there. That's a little difficult for me to do in a public space. And so because of that, I'll reserve some of my views on it. Injuries is a part of the sport, however, and I will just say this. I am sure everybody knows that it's critical that we manage our young talents well. And also those young talents have to pay attention as well to ensure that they are managed well. And by manage, I mean physically. Your body is important. If that's something that you want to do long term, which camera should I be looking at? Is it that one? If this is something you want to do long term, you really need to own your body and what's happening with it, and be sure that whatever you do at a young age is not going to jeopardize your future. Because, you know, I've heard of instances, and it's maybe something that's happening. And I will also say that there are cases in which, for a number of reasons, somebody doesn't make it professionally. And it's not necessarily that they were burnt out as a young athlete. People lose interest, you know. They've been eclipsed by better talent in other parts of the world. There's so many different things in the mix. Like, even if you look at football, only about 1% of who play will go on to play professionally. 1%. You know, so some of the people that we say, what happened to so-and-so? They doesn't make it.
Switching gear from track and field to a sport, I know you have a lot of love, admiration towards NBA. So, more touch upon basketball players. First of all, LeBron or MJ?
LeBron James. I'm a socially conscious person, people. It has to be LeBron James for more than one reason. He's a man on and off the court.
So, okay.
I specifically asked that question for our producer. The question I want to ask though, what's been lacking in Jamaica? Why we haven't been able to develop a successful basketball league here?
I've worked with the NBL for a number of years. And it was a time when basketball was on a high. I think that there were more fans looking at the sport at the time. Basketball numbers have dipped a little bit.
Why do you think? Why is that the case?
It's Steph Curry, you know. Steph Curry changed basketball. Now it's more, it's just 3 point. It's just not, it's not the same. Anybody who knows 90s basketball knows it doesn't feel the same. And I think that has filtered through in everything, including the leagues. But I think one of the issues that has happened to basketball in Jamaica is the same thing that has happened with our other sporting endeavors, in that sometimes it's the association that I think needs to probably pay a little more attention to ensuring that it moves in a professional direction and that it's able to garner sponsorships and that they're able to continue the leagues, because that's the only way we're going to really develop. So I think some of that would have happened. And then also we've done relatively well at track and field in recent times, to the point at which some of that sponsorship dollar goes into other areas now.
Yeah.
And so it will affect a sport like basketball. So I think that's part of what has happened with the sport.
Okay. What's your opinion on the two Jamaicans that got drafted recently in the NBA?
Awesome. Love to see it. I like how you Did you see that?
Yeah.
With the flags?
Showcasing the flags, yeah.
Yeah, I just messaged my good friend who I met at Digital Jumpstart Clinic, Jordan Kelly, and Jordan is over in Utah now playing. And I say, you're next, bro. I'm waiting to make some noise for you. And he's like, just watch me, I'm gonna do it, But you have some Jamaicans that are doing pretty well right now. I'm not familiar with all of them. But even in the Caribbean, generally, you have some guys in Trinidad that were really good when I used to be a part of Digital's Jumpstart. And I'd be like, wow, there is talent around the region. Again, it's just a matter of who is managing that talent and whether they get there.
Okay. Would you be ever interested in managing any basketball?
Of course. Absolutely. There's a lot of money in basketball. Give me a call.
And on that note, I don't know if my co-host has anything else to say. No? All right, so I think, if they can let the viewers know where they can find you on all social media platforms.
You can find me on, are you going to just put it up on screen?
Yeah, we can just put it up.
Okay.
Producer.
Let's put it up on screen. But I'm at Tanya Lee. Is that what my Instagram is? So it's at Tanya Lee on Instagram and at Tanya Lee on Twitter. And I don't really have good Twitter fingers, so I hardly use it. I messages sit there for months. I'm sorry about that.
All right, that's fine. I'm sure they'll find a way to contact you on Instagram as well. But so that was a very engaging conversation, very knowledgeable about sports. Tanya Lee, thank you so much again for speaking with us.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. 876 stream.